Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guest is a legend. He is in quite possibly my favorite movie of all time, Goodfellas, and he's on one of the best cop shows on television, Shades of Blue. Let's take a look at a clip of Ray Liotta in action.
You're willing to identify corruption within the NYPD?
I am.
I gotta make the crew whole again. I'm not starting a war with the secret police.
Obstruction, racketeering,
I need a little favor.
and murder.
Involving active duty police officers, including yourself?
Correct.
Do you consider yourself more of a police officer or a criminal?
Depends on the day.
Shades of Blue, the explosive final season, premieres June 17th on
Everybody, the great Ray Liotta. Mr. Liotta, thanks so much for being here.
I'm sorry?
Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the final season of Shades of Blue.
Thank you, even though we didn't know about it till 2 weeks ago.
It's kind of ridiculous. Did you get the chance?
It's kind of ridiculous.
It is
more than kind of.
It is ridiculous. Did you get the chance to, do you feel like the final season tells the story, finishes the story for the audience?
No. Because I don't think anybody knew. I mean, maybe the producers knew in their mind, and maybe it was a question mark, wondering what was going to happen. But the way it ended, they did a proper, good TV show cliffhanger. So something happens to her, something happens to me. But what happens in this season, from what I remember, because it was so long ago that we shot it, is she's like she says in there, she wants to finally testify, get all the bad doings that she's done off her chest. I'm deeply hurt by it because I saved her from going to jail because she did something bad, and she becomes a daughter to me because my daughter killed herself, and I feel it was my fault that she killed herself. And I have flashbacks this season. You're asking, I do remember this.
Yeah, you remember a lot.
Well, no, I remember this because my daughter plays my daughter.
Oh, wow.
So that was really, really fun, and it brought a lot more emotion to what was happening. Where there's one scene where I like go to confession in my head, and I go into a bar. Because the character's gay, he goes into a gay bar. He's bi. Goes into a gay bar, and the guy comes out, and then I start verbally abusing him. And he goes and gets his friends. While they do that, I go put my gun to the side, and I just let them beat me. I want to, I guess, pay penance for what I've done. And during that time, my daughter, comes to me, and literally it was my daughter Carson, and she just kind of shook her head. It's like, what are you doing, Dad? With your life. But it was so in character that, and then there's one more, I thought I was tired, and now I'm just chatterboxing, aren't I? And then there's something where, I'm kind of looking at my life and what I've done, and she has this dialogue with me, and then she disappears, and I just broke down, and I hit it hard because I pictured Carson, this happening to Carson, oh my gosh, God forbid if I said something and my daughter killed herself by something I said that she took wrong, it would be devastating, and it emotionally really, really bruised me.
Do we get to see that on camera? See you kind of...
Well, no, I'm sure they'll cut out of it.
Really?
Yeah, it's TV.
Yeah, I mean, because I feel like that's not something that we get to see you do that often in movies and TV, which is break down and be emotionally vulnerable. You're always vulnerable as an actor and giving yourself to scenes, but I don't think we've ever seen a side of you where you really cry that hard. Even in Goodfellas, the classic scene where you find out that Joe Pesci's been killed, it's kind of like, oh, shit.
No, the only time really is at the end when I got to go to, I just remember what Paulie's, he's cooking the sausage, and I go and I tear up because I have to ask him for money.
Right. $10,000 for a lifetime or $5,000 for a lifetime.
I don't remember what it was.
That.
Is that what I say? I haven't seen the movie in so long. I don't know.
But what was it like to get the chance to break down like that as an actor? Because I imagine you're not asked to do that often.
It's great. I remember there were times where I was In the script, it says that you're supposed to break down, and for like a month before it gets to that day, you're hoping that you're gonna be prepared to do that. And now, after doing this for so long, I just trust myself as an actor. So once the camera turns on and I have to let it go, I just let it go, and the tears are there. But it's all about the story and being in tune with the story. Are you guys actors or something, or just nah? There you go. All right, there's one. So it's about the story.
Just talk to him. And how did your daughter Carson? Was it the producer's idea? They said let's bring your daughter in here.
Yeah. Yeah,
you
she
think
had come to this set every season because it happens. We always shot over the summertime, so she would come and stay with me for like a month or so, and they just saw, the relationship that we had and that she wanted to act. So they just asked her if she wanted to do this.
Was that uncomfortable for you at all that they asked her to do it?
No, it was great. It was great. Yeah, I mean, it was good for her. She started learning how to behave in front of a camera. It was really good. I mean, what am I going to do? It's what she wants to do. Who am I to say no?
Is there a part of you that wants to say no or direct her towards something else?
No, just whatever makes her happy. Truly, I know it might sound goofy, but it's what she wants to do. I mean, that's the only reason I got into acting is because I didn't even want to go to college. I walked out of my SATs. My dad said, go to any school you want, take whatever you want. I got into the University of Miami because at that time you just needed a pulse to get in there. I got in and I was just going to take liberal arts because I had no idea what I wanted to do, and going to college wasn't one of them. I get up there at the front of the line for liberal arts, and they said you had to take a math and a history. I said, I don't want to be here. I'm not going to take math and history. So right next to it was for the drama department, and I had a drama elective my senior year of high school. And my friend Gene and I, we just messed around and we did children's theater, which is really fun and goofy. So I just said, all right, I'll be an actor. My dad said, go for a year, take whatever you want. All right, I'm going to be an actor. And I remember there was a typical actor story. A girl asked, "Are you going out for the play tonight?" I said, "No." She berated me. That's all you got to do the play. It's all about doing the plays. Long story longer, I auditioned and I got in the play. And the first thing I did was I was a dancing waiter in cabaret. And the first year, all I did were musicals.
And wasn't there a teacher there? I feel like I've talked to you about this before. Wasn't there a teacher there who really kind of set you off on your journey, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, Robert Buckets Lowry. And they called him Buckets because he used to play basketball. And I was a jock all through school. All I cared about were sports. So
you needed that older jock to be like, you can like both, right?
Well, that, and he was just really intense about, he's very Stanislavski driven, and it was, it was about being real, and he just whatever he said, he made me feel good about what I was doing. And like anybody, everybody who does what they do, hopefully it's because they're feeling good about it or feel like they can do it.
So really important when you're young or when you're taking on something new to have somebody reassuring you just a little bit, to say, no, you're doing a good job. Keep going. Otherwise, you're like, what? Where do I go with this stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah. So are you going to miss Wozniak?
Yeah, I will, because it was just so multi-dimensional. There really was a lot to play, and there was a lot of room to explore other areas of his personality. It really was a complicated character.
Well, because he's for all intents and purposes, kind of a bad guy, but at the same time, he does good things.
No, he's not even kinda. He's a bad guy, but to bad people, right? He's a bad guy to bad people, takes money from bad people, thinks his policing is better. And I talk to cops now, and they don't wish to be a Wozniak, but they do wish that there wasn't such a spotlight on everything they did, because they felt like they were more effective when they were doing things when they could really ask the bad guy or not rough him up, but let him know that you're talking to a cop who doesn't want any BS and let me know what's going on. And that's been taken away from them for some for good reasons and some for not so good.
So have you talked to a fair amount of cops who watch the show? Do you get any letters or tweets or anything from cops? who
Not
watch the
letters
show
or
and like it?
tweets. I don't know many cops that tweet, and I don't
Probably
tweet.
for the better, I think. You know?
But yeah, I played a bunch of cops, and a lot of them weren't good. Yeah, in this particular case, they liked how it was somewhat in the 70s. And not that they were just going up and punching people and taking away their rights, but just there was, now, from what I understand here in New York, and it's a shame that it's gotten to this place, and I don't know what's coming first here, but they have to wear cameras on themselves. That's new here in New York?
I think it's new everywhere. Body cameras.
Yeah, and it's because of some bad apples, obviously.
Yeah.
But there is a hindrance to the policing too.
Oftentimes we've found that the body cameras, they can shut them off. They can personally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So in scenarios where something has happened, it's been like, oh, the body camera got shut off. And so it doesn't, as much as people have to wear them, it's not apparently doing the job that people actually hope for it to do or want
Oh,
it to do.
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'm curious. We talked about you being vulnerable in the scene with your daughter, and I do feel like, since your first role, your first big role, Something Wild, you've been you're great in everything that you do, but somewhat typecast, I would imagine, and maybe you feel that way too. You've had brief moments here and there when you've gotten to play something completely different than what you play. Think of something like Corinna. Do you still have an urge in you to find roles or even like audition for roles that are, a warm, sweet, nice guy dealing with a...
Totally. I mean, I did 2 movies with the Muppets. I didn't kill Miss Piggy or choke Kermit. I did a movie, Heartbreakers, that was a comedy with Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sigourney Weaver and Gene Hackman. I just played a lawyer in a Noah Baumbach movie. So I've done other things. There have been. I always feel like I'm being defensive when I say well, thank God you mentioned Corinna, but there were other movies where I played really nice guys. Some of them weren't successful at all and went right to video. But yeah, I would like to kiss the girl without having to choke her first.
That's a little reference to Something Wild, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you just keep plugging away.
And what's so interesting about that, though...
Wait, excuse me. I've got 4 or 5 beautiful scripts that if I was in a higher position in the business that I would love to get made.
That you've written or that
No.
someone wants you in?
Yeah, and that I've read over the years.
It's so interesting, though, because you think for all intents and purposes, Goodfellas is probably, your most famous movie. It's a classic at this point, one of the greatest movies ever made. And in that, you're not really like an evil, that bad of a guy. You are, for the most part, the good guy of that movie and are a fairly decent, warm person given the context of the world that your character's in, right?
That's the only way Henry got to where he got, that they trusted him because he kept his mouth shut. He knew what the game was. He knew where he stood with these guys. And he wasn't a tough guy. He did that one thing where he beat the guy up across the street because of what he did to his fiancée, to Karen. But other than that, yeah, he was a nice guy and did what he was told.
What's the hardest role you've ever played?
I don't know.
That gave you maybe the most pause or the most worry going into it every day.
Oh, definitely Frank Sinatra and Rat Pack.
Really?
No question. Because everybody knows. Is it going to rain?
I hope not. It was beautiful earlier.
I hope it does, actually.
You think it does?
Yeah, because I live in California, so a nice thunderstorm, I would just love it.
Oh, yeah.
It was that because of fear of judgment, which the one thing that an actor should never really be worried for or think about. But it was playing Sinatra, somebody that everybody knows. They, and all I have in common from him with Sinatra is we have light eyes and we both say F and we're both from New Jersey. So it was the singing and the dancing and just feeling okay with it. And then I really just had to give really think this through and realizing that it boiled down to a fear of what somebody was going to say about it. And then once I got past that, and you kind of like give a finger to all that stuff, and you just go and play pretend, which I got to by the time I started. It was a blast. It was so much fun singing and dancing, and it was a really good cast. And it actually was a down period in my career, and it kind of picked things up again when I did it.
Hey, do you feel like you've had a fair amount of up and down periods in your career, or do you remember maybe just one down period and then it came back up? Do you notice those things when they're happening?
Yeah, I'm like the stock market. I'm up and down. It really is, because I always thought going into it that the whole idea was to play as many different parts as you could, and that's what I did in the beginning of my career. Like after Goodfellas, there was I played a heart surgeon in the VA system. Then I did Unlawful Entry. Then I did No Escape, which is like an action movie. But those movies never really clicked on with the public, but I was having a blast because I was doing different things. And this really is a business, and if you're not bringing in money, who's the next person?
So you weren't necessarily thinking about each project as a kind of, how is this going to further my career? You were thinking about more as like, oh, this looks like a fun part to play.
Right, exactly. That's to me what it's about. And now a lot of these actors, they brand themselves by doing a certain kind of movie all the time that eventually they get to do, like in other words, the Noah Baumbach movie, it was Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver. And a lot of it was because of Avengers and Adam is Darth Vader. So it really, really helped them out. And I wish I had a redo, because right after Something Wild, they were interested, Tim Burton was interested for me to be in Batman.
Really?
And I just said, no, I'm not a Batman.
Good for you.
It was well, no, not really.
The original Batman's great, but good for anybody who can look at a superhero script and say, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that was the first. But there was a game to be played that I realize now. I used to not want to play two bad guys in a row, and for a while I didn't. But all those movies, like the lower independent movies, I would get to and was the hero. But if it was over a certain budget, there was no way I was going to get it, because I wasn't a huge star or didn't bring in big openings the first weekend. So I got to play those kinds of parts. It just to myself.
So you said no to Batman?
I said no to auditioning for the Batman. He didn't offer it to me. When you see, so I'm not sure that I would have, but I didn't even give it a shot, because it just sounded so wrong. Yet, how much I loved Tim Burton's stuff. Right before that, he had done Beetlejuice. Now, that was a great movie. I mean, he's a really, really good director. So I was stupid then.
But that said, I think in the 90s, in the 80s and in the 90s, even if you did a superhero movie, it didn't necessarily create the kind of global box office brand that they do for you now. Movies then, in the star system then, it was still a chance that you were taking on someone in slightly more human movies. Julia Roberts' biggest, what broke through for her was like Mystic Pizza and Pretty Woman, which were movies about people.
Right. Right.
And the same thing can be said for you and Something Wild. Your breakthrough wasn't Batman Returns or anything. It was but I still would like to have. I mean, I still feel like I haven't made it. I still have a hunger and a fire to keep
to keep it going. Like, I still love playing pretend. The business sucks, but the actual job itself, I still find fascinating, and it's like, I like putting together the puzzle.
Do you still audition?
If they wanted me to, I would, yeah. I think the last time I auditioned was for Heartbreakers because it was a comedy. But I would in a second. I'm always telling my agents, like, tell them to just put me in a room with them. I'll audition if it's something different that I feel like that I could show them something different. Then that's part of the game. You got to play the game to beat them at the game.
But there's also probably a part of you, if it's like not something totally different, you'll probably say something like, "There's a lot of material out there for you to check for my audition." Right?
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We want you to play a dirty cop. Okay, well, you can go find the stuff for that one.
Actually, there was something similar to that. I don't remember what it was, but somebody wanted me to audition for something. I said, "What are you, nuts?"
It's literally on a show right now that has this. Let's get some questions from the audience. Right here?
Hi, Ray. I'm Dan. I'm a big fan.
Thanks, Dan.
I love Goodfellas with you, Joe Pesci, and Robert De Niro. And my question for you is, what was it like working with Jennifer Lopez, and what was the greatest scene you guys collaborated?
The biggest what?
The greatest scene that you and Jennifer Lopez filmed.
Yeah, I really like that. That was a question mark for me when I first started because I hadn't seen Jennifer in this kind of genre. But I figured she's also very smart and savvy about the business, that she feels obviously confident. She's not going to do something that she thinks she's going to fall on her face. So I decided if she was game, then I'm game. And some of my favorite scenes were with her because they were so rich with like, she does I get her out of trouble because she plants a weapon that was used in a murder on her boyfriend who was cheating on her. So that she wanted, no, because he was might have influence on their kid. So and I take her as a daughter. So we could be talking about scenes in terms of what's going on with the police sort of stuff that we were doing, but it was also nice that I also felt like I was talking to a daughter and a relative and someone that I really loved. So, sometimes so there's humor sometimes. They were two people with a long history. So they were some of my favorite scenes with her.
Next question. Hey.
Hi.
How did you prepare for the role of Henry Hill in Goodfellas?
Once I got it, I went to Nick Pileggi, the writer, who wrote the book, and he had cassettes, hours and hours and hours of cassettes. And I said, "Do you mind if I borrow these and listen to them?" And that's what I did. Back then, that's how you listen to music and stuff, was not the 8-track, but the cassettes. And there was just so much information. And one of the things, though, through it all, which drove me crazy, is he was chewing potato chips the whole time. And so here's someone like just chomping away, telling a story. It's very unnerving. It's like, shut up, just talk, stop chewing, like take a drink. It was like it was, which said a lot about him. He just did what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. But he talked very casually about things that you and I we'd be horrified to talk about. It was so mostly that, and then just the homework and breaking down I was always taught that they're not lines, they're thoughts, so you have to know what your thoughts are, what you're saying, and what they mean to you.
I'd imagine that even though you're listening to tapes of Henry Hill, Scorsese may have said that, none of you are really doing impressions or actually sort of have to pretend that you are exactly like Henry Hill or exactly like, Jimmy, because so much of what's wonderful about that movie is that you guys are you're cast
Right.
for these parts specifically, and they're tailored around you as actors. They don't feel like they're tailored around the real people, if that makes sense.
No, they were tailored. These are real situations that these people were in. and it's coming from Henry's just remembering of the things that happened and how it happened. But gosh, I lost the train of my thought. What was I gonna say?
That they're based
Oh
around-
no, Marty never. So I said, should I go talk to Henry? And he didn't want me to because he was afraid that the story would, what they had set in stone, that all of a sudden he might forget that he said it and tell a different story. But I do know that Bob was talking to Henry while they were doing it. He would ask questions about Jimmy and what did Jimmy do in certain scenes. But Marty didn't want me to talk to Henry at all in the beginning.
What did you think of De Niro's news, the big news this week of De Niro at the Tony Awards?
No, it's free speech, free country, you know.
I agree. Next question.
A role different from other great roles you played? What did you learn from it? And also, do you think the era of great A-list gangster movies has passed in the favor of new contemporary genres now? What's your opinion?
I'm not sure.
How is this role different from other roles that you've played? And do you think the great era of gangster movies is over?
I hope so. I'm sure
It ended with Goodfellas
yeah,
was the one, that pinnacle.
Exactly. There was a lot of them before that. This particular role, is that you're asking me how I felt about doing this? I love playing this character, playing a bisexual cop who was on the take doing bad things, but was also extremely paternal with the people that he was working with, and he had his own way of justice and way he thought that his area should be run. You know, he got rid of like all these drug dealers, but just kept one so he can keep his eye on this one person, and got rid of all the others. So there definitely was a method to his madness. He was still a cop's cop, but obviously, you know, he would step over the line a lot.
I think we have time for two more.
Hey, Ray, thanks for being here today, man. This is really an honor. You recently entered the world of The Simpsons, playing Moe's father, which I think is fucking hilarious. What was that experience like for you, and would you even give us a little taste? I mean, you know, I want to put you on the spot, but...
Well, no, it's you just get down in there. Wow, what are you doing, Mo? I just after 30 years, I was glad they finally asked me. It seemed like every other actor got a chance to do it. And where was mine? I've done a couple Family Guys, but that was one that I hadn't done. So, and it was a blast. It was fun. It was singing and those. And David Merkin, who's a producer there, he's the one who directed Heartbreakers. So I connected with him again. But I love doing it. I would love to do a character on an animated show or a movie, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Thanks.
One more?
Hi. So our final question is going to come from an online viewer. Grace wants to know, how do you support your actor? How do you support your daughter entering acting now?
How do I
support?
How do you support your daughter as she enters into acting right now?
Verbally. I just encourage her. One thing, she didn't want to go to college, and I was okay with that because I didn't want to go to college. So who was I to come down on her? I told her all the pluses and how good it was for me, but the one thing that I demanded that she do was study with my acting teacher, this guy Harry George, who when I first moved to L.A., I studied with for 5 years, and then after every movie, after Something Wild, after Dominic and Eugene, after Field of Dreams, after Goodfellas, I would go back to class after every movie just to keep working out.
Do you still go to class every now and then?
I'll drop in and listen every now and then, yeah.
Ray, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming by. Shades of Blue is on NBC, the final season. Ray Liotta, everybody.
Thank you.